Okay, so up next, let's discuss about smart spawning behavior of our procedural road system. So basically, this is used for the runtime level optimizations, which is if you have very large open world game, we don't usually spawn all the pedestrians, vehicles, or any sort of AI characters directly at once. So those spawning should be handled only when the player can see in a distant area. Other than that, we don't need to spawn or visualize those NPC characters at the distant areas of the level, because it will affect the performance as well as the resource utilization of your game. So in order to intelligently handle all of those behaviors, we need a smart spawning mechanism, which means sometimes we have to control the spawnings of the NPCs, vehicles, or any sort of AI characters based on the player proximity. Also, the spawning and despawning should be happen in the both ways, because when the character is moving along, the distant NPCs or distant vehicles where the player can't see, they should be despawned as well. So the resources will be free back to spawn many instances later on. Okay, so both of these spawning and despawning should be synchronized properly, and it should be handled at runtime in a smart way. So in our procedural road system, it is essential to have this sort of a behavior, because when you have very large levels, when you have very complex road networks, we always need to take very good care of the performance. Otherwise, if you spawn everything at once at runtime on all the roads, it's not quite good for the performance, and the FPS can be drastically dropped whenever that spawning happens. Okay, so currently we had followed two optimization mechanisms to control this smart spawning and the despawning. So the first algorithm is basically the player proximity based spawns and despawns, which means in a dedicated range of the player, it performs this spawning and despawning. Also, the second approach is occlusion. So there we follow an algorithm called view contest, which means this spawning and despawning happens only when player can't see that specific spawned location, right? Which means actually before spawning, we do a evaluation of the candidate spawn locations, and if this spawn location can be seen by the player, we don't allow to spawn on those locations. Other than that, if the player can't see those locations, then they will become a allowed location to have a valid spawn or even a despawn, right? So those are the mechanisms that we followed for the smart spawning, and let's see how we implemented those stuff at the procedural road system. Okay, so this is my level. So to handle the smart spawning, I think we can use this map pedestrians map, but I will take a duplicate, and I'll call this one as map smart spawns. Open that up. Okay, so now if I play it like this directly, you can see our FPS around 60 to 70, and we have vehicles and pedestrians. So here actually only the pedestrians are spawning at runtime. These vehicles are placed manually, but maybe let's spawn them on runtime as well. So I'll select all of these roads and toggle active vehicle spawns on here, right? So now you can see the FPS has been dropped drastically. We have around 50 to 60 FPS, which is actually fine, but when you have much more larger levels, this may significantly drop. Okay, so maybe let's have a higher length for the road. this, and let's try to play it again. Right now you can see the FPS dropped drastically, right? So it's around 42 to 43 FPS, which is not quite good for the performance, right? And worth mentioning that this sample is running under the cinematic mode, which means the highest possible engine quality, engine scalability quality. Maybe like if you change the preset to medium, then this FPS is bit enhanced. So now you can see it's around 47, 48, close to 50. But at the worst case scenario, when we have the cinematic mode, which means the highest possible graphic quality, so then we can see we have a very poor performance, right? This is common for any simulation actually. When we have higher amount of simulations, we need high amount of resources. So if it doesn't have that amount of resources, it will degrade the performance. Okay, so that's why we need smart spawning mechanisms, right? So to enable the smart spawn, it's quite simple. All you have to do is go to their level manager, and there is a feature called smart spawning, and simply click this allow smart spawn option. So it will automatically do the smart spawning and despawning for you, right? So these are the stuff that I mentioned at the slide. So based on this specific player proximity, we can perform the smart spawning and despawning, and the spawn and despawn correction delay or the check delay is 1 second, which means for each 1 second it perform a smart spawn check to perform that dynamic spawns. Also, despawn proximity is somewhat similar for the player proximity, but it's for the despawning, which means if pedestrians or vehicles exceed this range and it can't be seen by the player, which means they are possibly be destroyed at runtime, which means the despawn. Also, we have to maintain a maximum NPC count and the vehicle count, otherwise we will keep spawning characters again and again, which is not quite good. So here we maintain that NPC count as well, right? So currently we perform we keep maximum, we allow actually maximum NPCs around 10 and vehicles to be around 10 as well, right? So let's play. So now you can see the pedestrians only appearing when we can't see it, right? So currently you can see whenever I look away, their spawnings happens, right? Okay, so let's go to here maybe. Now you can see whenever I look away, they spawn, right? Also you can see the performance is quite good. It's close to 70 to 80 FPS, which is quite good, right? And let's go far away from the level, and you can see now they slowly disappearing, right? So now we have lower amount of pedestrians, and maybe if I go to here, now we have actually low amount of vehicles as well, right? So you can actually visualize this stuff, but for that you have to enable this level debug UI, right? So if you enable this thing, here you can see NPC and vehicle count on the top of the HUD. Maybe I will go to the editor window mode, so it will be much more clear to see. So currently you can see the NPC count is 0 and vehicle count is 0, and if I look away, you can see the NPC count increased, which means they have been spawned, and if I look it back, you can see the NPCs are there. So it's around 10, right? It could be either 9, it could be either 11, 12, something like that, and it is always maintained within that specific range. And also you can see the vehicle count is also getting increased, they are spawned, and we maintain that specific count, right? The count can be changed because at the runtime spawning and despawning happens, but anyway it will be within that specific range. It won't go in a higher range like 100 or 200, something like that. Okay, so that's the smart spawning feature. So actually you can further improve these smart spawning mechanisms with your custom logics or some intelligent custom algorithms. So you can always refer to those stuff at the level manager, and here we have a dedicated category called smart spawning. So this is the place actually we perform all the smart spawning mechanisms, right? So if you maybe check out this perform smart spawn function, here you can see we basically perform a spear trace based on the player proximity, and we take the allowed instances that can perform a spawn, which means in our scenario it's a road, and then we get the candidate spawn locations out from that specific hit actor, and we perform validation for that specific location. So you can see this can spawn function implementation. Here we check whether it's within the player proximity range and whether it is occluded, and only both of these condition matches we perform a spawn. Also, not only these conditions, it has to maintain the dedicated maximum NPC count and the vehicle count accordingly. So if all of these conditions matches only, we allow this candidation location to be a allowed location to spawn a dedicated actor, and after that we perform the spawn, right? Similar logic will be applied for the pedestrians and vehicles like this, right? So you can actually refer to the code in more detail at this level manager, or you can even add multiple different custom logics to have a better performance, right? Okay, so one thing I can show is that I can maybe show the debug smart spawn range as well. So if I enable this debug smart spawn as true, now you can see whenever I'm moving there is a small actually not small but an spear appear through the level, and you can see at the some positions it detects location, and at some positions it has these red and green marks, which means it detects for the possible collisions, right? So this is the player proximity range basically, and you can see for each 1 second it perform a check, right? So that is the player proximity based smart spawn. Occlusion will be happen whenever the character is not looking to that specific candidate location, right? So you can see when I'm looking to this range, it doesn't perform a spawn, but if I look away and maybe look back, it can spawn the NPCs, right? So that's about the smart spawning, and in the next section I will discuss about the zone specific spawns. So I'll see you there. Thank you.